Okay, guys, this is English 201, and we're continuing to talk about The Tempest. We're really wrapping up the semester here. We're heading towards the end because I've already been through The Tempest once, talking about one key metaphor, which is the Prospero as Shakespeare, and now we're going through it again, looking at a different metaphor, which has to do with Prospero. There's two metaphors. Two big metaphors in Shakespeare in this play. We spent a lot of time talking about the metaphor Prospero is compared to Shakespeare. What do they have in common? They both use their art, magic, theater, to create illusions. They get lost in the world of illusions. Maybe they neglect the real world. They have people helping them with these things. So it's just like kind of a big metaphor we were going through. Now we're going through a different metaphor. One of the things I want to show you that makes Shakespeare interesting is he's so complicated that one character, Prospero, can be a metaphor for two very different things. And the play works both ways. So one of the other things Prospero is a metaphor for is a colonialist, a colonizer, someone who comes into another country and takes over and enslaves the people that live there, and is controls his own power. Really works to sort of shore up his power to make sure he's the one in charge and he's behind everything. And Shakespeare is an interesting writer, and his characters are interesting and they're complex and they do multiple things. So having been through this massive metaphor, Prospero as Shakespeare, now I'm going through the play again, looking at this other metaphor, Prospero as sort of colonialist invader into a land of non-white people that he takes over and enslaves the population. So it's sort of like, it's a little bit like Prospero as Christopher Columbus. Right? We started off with Prospero as Shakespeare, and now it's Prospero as Christopher Columbus. Shakespeare works like this a lot, where his characters are rich and complicated, and so multiple metaphors work pretty well when they're doing these things. So, okay, looking pretty good. Let's take a look at where we left off. So when we left off, Prospero, I'd mentioned Caliban, and again, Shakespeare's complicated, because on the one hand, it seems like maybe Prospero tells lies about Caliban, so he can keep Caliban enslaved. For example, he claims Caliban's father is the devil. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. His mother was a witch, but that doesn't necessarily mean she had sex with the devil, although people thought that about witches. It seems like the kind of thing a slave owner might make up in order to justify owning other human beings. But there's another charge against Caliban that's completely true, which is he tried to rape Prospero's daughter, Miranda. Again, Shakespeare's always complicated. It's not simple. In movies, there's good guys and there's bad guys, and the good guys tend to stay good and the bad guys tend to stay bad, with some small exceptions. But in Shakespeare, everything's really complicated. So Caliban, he admits that he tried to rape Miranda. Oh, and the other interesting thing about Caliban, so Prospero enslaves Caliban and Ariel, who he found on the island, but Caliban is a special case, because Caliban is the only person in the entire play who was born on the island, which means he's the only person, he's sort of a metaphor for all native peoples. Caliban was born on the island. He's the only person who is native to the island. Even his mother wasn't from the island. She was from a different place, Algiers, and she was sent to this island pregnant. But Caliban's the only person who was born on the island. And so in a way, it's Caliban's, by the normal way we think about sort of property and land and shit, is that if you're born there, it's your country. And so Caliban's the only person born there, and so maybe he's the only person who this place really belongs to. Which is sad, because now he is currently enslaved, although also a rapist, so a would-be rapist. And so Shakespeare's complicated, give you a lot to think about. That's why teachers love this shit, because there's so much you could say about it. I know it makes students crazy, the way teachers go on and on and on about books, but Shakespeare's great because he does so many complicated things. He's easy to teach, because I could just keep teaching this play forever and I would never run out of shit to talk about, which is not true. Like, I really enjoyed Avengers Endgame, but like, I'd run out of stuff to say pretty quickly. I could talk about Avengers Endgame for like maybe 2 hours and I would be out of material. All right, let's see what else we got here. So Prospero's talking to Caliban, and he says, I have used thee, filth as thou art, with humane care, and have lodged thee in mine own cell, right? I let you live in my own house, and I was really kind to you, till thou didst seek to violate the honor of my child. So you tried to rape Miranda. Caliban says, oh, what had been done? He wishes he had raped her. Thou didst prevent me. I had peopled else this isle with Calibans. He says, I wish I had raped her and then she could have had my babies. Now, obviously, rape's no good. But the idea that Caliban wants children and that those children should inherit the island is interesting. He was born there and his children would be natives of the island. Um, Usually when Christopher Columbus, invades, what we call America today, there were a lot of, native people living there. When Prospero lands on the island, Caliban is the only native person living there. But the metaphor still works. It's not about the number of people. It's about how do you treat people when you find them. And Prospero is not treating Caliban really good. Although Caliban also doesn't seem to be that good a person. Although, let me throw I don't want to defend the rapist Caliban, but it is worth pointing out that, like, this is literally the only human female he's ever seen in his entire life, and Prospero brought him along, brought Miranda with him. So, I mean, it's a little bit like, I guess obviously, I don't want to. Now I'm in a weird position because I'm like defending a rapist, and that's not good. But it's just worth pointing out that, like, the temptation to rape was put there by Prospero, right? He's the one that had the daughter, brought her to the island, and he made it. Caliban could not have committed rape unless Prospero shows up with Miranda. So my point is just this is an extremely complicated play with extremely complicated characters and extremely complicated motivations. So all right, let's keep looking. All right, so let's take a look. So Miranda jumps in here and starts shouting at Caliban for being a terrible person. She says, abhorred slave, which any print of goodness will not take, being capable of all ill. I mean, she calls him a slave, and abhorred means hated. She says, you can't be good. You're so evil. You can't ever be good. She says, I pitied thee, took pains to make thee speak, taught thee each hour one thing or other. When thou didst not, savage, know thine own meaning, thou wouldst gabble like a thing most brutish. I endowed thy purpose with words that made them known. But thy vile race thou didst learn had that in it which good natures could not abide with. Therefore wast thou deservedly confined into this rock, who hast deserved more than a prison. It's a little detail that's really interesting that Miranda taught Caliban how to speak. She was his tutor. When she landed on the Caliban was alone on the island, so nobody ever taught him words. And when Miranda arrives, she teaches him how to speak. This again, when you're thinking about the metaphor here of people who invade another country, one of the first things invaders do is they force the native people to speak the language of the invaders. They fuck up their language. And they sort of force them to speak a different language because it's the language of power, the language the invaders brought with them. So again, Caliban didn't have any other options. It's not like he had a language of his own. But it's worth pointing out that, like, the first they taught him English. You might think of countries like Haiti. A lot of my students are from countries that had native people and then another group came in and took over. It's worth thinking about what language do they speak there and how did they learn it. We have all but wiped out Native American languages. There are very few. It's not a lot of people who speak those original native languages. English has replaced everything. When we go places, we force people to speak our language because we're the powerful ones, and if they want to participate in power, they have to learn these languages. So it's, again, the issue of language is interesting, and Caliban's response is one of Shakespeare's greatest lines. It's really a fantastic line because she says, I can't believe you're such a terrible person. I was nice to you. I pitied you. I was kind to you. I taught you to speak. And he says, you taught me language, and my profit on it is I know how to curse. Like, oh shit, that's a good line. Like, you taught me to speak. And you know what's really good about that is I can say, fuck you. Because he couldn't say that before. And curse really, he doesn't mean fuck you. He means, like, put a curse on you, like a spell. Because his mother was a witch. But still, the idea that like, she's like, I taught you language. He's like, I'm glad you did so that I can say, you're a terrible human being. Because they invaded. And he says the red plague rid you for learning me your language. You see, he hopes she gets a disease. Hag seed hence, fetch us and fee will be quick. Thou art best to answer other business. Shruggest thou malice? If thou neglect'st or dost unwillingly command, I'll rack thee with old cramps, fill all thy bones with aches, and make thee roar that beasts shall tremble. So she tells him she's going to torture him if he doesn't do what she wants. And Caliban says that he must obey because Prospero is so powerful. He really has no choice. This is a complicated play, and slavery is a really... Look at this bird! Guys, look at this red bird. Look at that bird. So, you see it? Look at this red. I'm going to try to see if... Oh, it flew away. See it up there? It's like a really big red bird. Okay, well, anyway, it went away. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.